We have two discussions this week, and the first one is going to be about the instructional design process. And for this one, you'll be required to post an initial message where you will reply to this conversation prompts, and then a response to one classmate. Now, your initial message is really just going to have 3 questions for you. The reason why you see so much information here is that you will answer the question depending on your previous experience with designing learning. So if you've had experience designing learning, this is the prompt for you. If not, but you've taken previous courses that touch on instructional design, this is the prompt for you. And if not, you'll be prompted to find any books in the Purdue online catalog or online that touch on instructional design and answer the question based on that. And so because we are going to be comparing Horton's book with your prior experiences or knowledge, use in-text citations as you answer the questions. Include the reference for any outside sources, especially if you are going to be discussing Horton as compared to previous books that you've read or a book that you just found in a library. Include the reference for outside sources. But because we already know Horton, we know the reference, we know the textbook, there's no need to include Horton's reference over and over again throughout the semester in your posts. You're not going to be penalized if you don't include it. It's not necessary. We all know. It's required for all the other references that you bring from outside the list of course readings. So in your initial message, make sure you use those in-text citations. In your one response that is required, make sure that you use those in-text citations. But if you post multiple messages because you felt like, somebody's message prompted you to reply to them, it's additional. It's not the one required message. You don't need to keep on citing the literature every time. You don't need to feel like you have to cite the literature for everything you say in this class. So only for the required messages. Any additional messages you're free to post. Be more spontaneous, maybe post about personal opinion or experience, no need to cite. Only cite for the required messages. There's a second discussion, which is regarding the project description and objectives, and this will ask you to start thinking about your very own project. And so you're going to have to post an initial message, and you'll see the instructions there, and then you'll post one response to each of 3 classmates. And the reason we're asking this is that you provide feedback to their ideas for the project and to how they wrote their learning objectives and their descriptions of the learners. So use in-text citations to support your recommendations. If you're telling them, your classmates, that they did not write the objectives properly, you have to tell them how they can improve, and your recommendations need to be based on literature. Remember that in instructional design, we cannot make changes based on personal preference. That may be costly to the company. So you have to always base your instructional design decisions and your recommendations to others on sound literature, research, best practices, whatever it is, but you always have to base your decisions on something that is not just your personal preference as an instructional designer. So always use in-text citations in this discussion forum. For your initial message and for your replies. But this time you have to include citations anytime that you make a recommendation, because you don't want to recommend out of personal preference. So the deadlines for our discussion for the first message, it is going to be Wednesday the 14th. For any replies, the deadline is going to be Sunday the 18th. All deadlines are 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And when it comes to grading, if you go on the course website and click on Getting Started and then scroll down on the page, you'll be able to see the discussion and participation blog here, and that'll give you the rubric that I will be using to grade your work. And so for the rubric, what I'm going to be looking at is that you post however many messages I told you to post. So if I said one initial message and say 1, 2, 3, or whatever many messages, that you've posted that minimum and that they're substantive. That you've posted by the deadlines. If you post late, you're gonna see deductions in your grade. I'm going to be looking at your use of course readings per the instructions on the discussion prompts. And also I'm going to be looking at whether you address all discussion prompts in your messages. If there's 3 questions and you only answer 1, you're going to see deductions in your grade. There is one additional conversation for this week, and it's really optional, and that is searching for a partner. Now, this is going to be convenient for you because this is a reading intensive course, and if on top of so much to read, you also have to work on your project all by yourself, it is going to be a lot of work. So you have an opportunity to kind of divide the work with somebody. Always have that person giving you feedback for the work that you do, and you'll probably turn in a much stronger project, and it's going to be easier for you to work on it. Also, it'll give you a genuine design experience in many instances, not in all instances, but in many instances, e-learning professionals work in teams. Now, there are some considerations you need to keep in mind if you are going to be working for a partner. This is not going to be a monitored group experience, which means I'm not going to be grading each person for individual work. This is really on an honor system. If you decide to work with a partner, it is because you talked to that person and you decided that yes, you both are going to be working on the project and you've committed to pull your own weight, etc. So you want to ensure that you're truly interested in the same subject, in the same type of educational context, and in the same delivery technology. You have to ensure that you have similar expectations regarding the level of quality of the work produced. You cannot work together if one person is just happy with a C or a B in the class, whereas the other person really wants to get an A. You have to have a similar commitment to the work to produce that level of quality. So not only, of course, everybody would like an A, but not everybody will want to work as much. So you have to explore that and be open about it at the beginning of the class. You know, I'm really not going to be able to work that much for this project, so okay, just let's part ways now instead of getting together. Also, make sure you ask the other person, will you have the time available to do so? Sometimes we enroll in a course and it turns out we are going to be moving during a part of the term, so you're not going to have enough time for, doing part of the work. It's better to be clear up front. You're moving, you're getting married, you're whatever, something is going to have your attention for some time. You're not going to be able to work as much during some time. You need to be open about those things at the beginning, because you may be stuck working with somebody who's really not going to be able to produce at the level you want, and we're trying to ascertain that since the very beginning of the semester. Also, make sure that you have similar work ethics and patterns. There's people who like to start working early. There's people who work at the last minute and produce great things. I suggest you talk about this. You know who you're getting together with, and maybe even take advantage of partners' preferences. So, the person who likes to start working early, get an early stab at the work, and then when you're tired, the night before you had a dinner, you don't want to be doing homework, trust that that person who likes working at the last minute will take care of all the last minute details that need to take care of before submission. These are things that you can talk about, you can agree on, and then you will be able to have a successful learning experience. The other thing you need to make sure is that you commit to abide by jointly set deadlines. There hasn't been a single instance in my professional experience where I have facilitated group work where one person agrees to submit something at a certain deadline and then they don't submit it and the group is happy. That never happens. If you do not submit by the deadline, you know you're going to have a group member who's going to be mad at you. Also, keep open communication lines at all times. If you receive an email, reply the email within a certain amount of time. Agree on expectations on how long you're going to take to reply to emails and abide to that. Especially when you're experiencing difficulties that may impact the work of your partner. You want to make sure that everybody knows what's going on. You don't want to fall off the face of the earth, because that has never ever made anybody happy in a group experience. So it's better to be open about things than to just hide in the cyber world and not reply to emails and have the other person get nervous.